This is Suchitra Vijayan, and you're joining us for the Polis Project's Dispatches series. With communities around the world currently living under various degrees of quarantine, lockdowns, and even curfews, these conversations are a way to center and amplify diverse voices, concerns, and struggles. We are living through a unique historical moment that requires solidarity, empathy, and more importantly, ways to reaffirm our shared humanity. The coming weeks and months will be chaotic, and along with it, unprecedented expansion of executive power that will encroach on civil liberties, further expand the existing surveillance architecture, and entrench the already existing inequalities. Borders will be sealed, and the communities already struggling under state violence and living through conflict will become invincible. It will become invisible and erased from news cycles. While there is much to despair, these moments are also moments to think about how we can radically remake our world and about new possibilities. As a part of this conversation, today I'm talking to my friend and Bombay based photographer Ritesh Uttamchandani. Ritesh Uttamchandani, thank you.
I know. Everyone does that.
This is the first day I'm getting it wrong. I'm so sorry, dude. Ritesh
It's all right.
Uttamchandani.
Um, Hello. Hi. So I'm used to my surname going through all these twists, but I hope everything is fine at your end. I hope everybody you know is fine. And
It's I don't know. We are fine. We are safe. We've been inside now for almost 3 weeks. But yesterday,
hmm,
Empire State Building went. It became the lights became like a siren, which was a way to show that we are in the middle of a crisis, but also as a way for thanking those who were on the front lines. And just seeing
hmm,
it was just, yeah, just seeing it was. It's like you're living in a dystopia, but we are lucky. I think,
hmm,
but now we're beginning to hear stories of people losing families, and it's bad. How are things with you guys?
hmm. I don't know whether to laugh or cry about our situation because we're. I mean, it's our first case was I think detected on the 30th of Jan,
Mm-hmm.
and ever since then the government has been doing everything else besides focusing on this. Like they were busy pulling down a government, they were busy chasing students, they were busy hosting your prime minister, they were busy doing everything
They were
else.
also busy
Besides,
orchestrating a pogrom.
yeah, that I mean I mentioned that, but so they've been doing everything else besides staying focused on. I mean, we were also told that this is not a serious thing, and Indian immunity and all these things, And I live in a gated community, so in that WhatsApp group, I would see that Holi, the festival of Holi, was just like in the beginning of March, and there were these very passionate discussions on whether we should celebrate Holi or not because it's a festival of color. There's a lot of contact, human contact, and the community that I live in. There are lots of like these. Bankers and CFOs and all sorts of people who travel across the world. So some people had very legit concerns that this is something that comes from travel history, and we don't know where you've been or what you're carrying till the time you're not. So finally, they also in the place where I live, they celebrate Holi in a slightly extreme manner, which is by having a rain dance, which is having showers and things like that. So, it's very ironic because this is the time when the drought happens in several states, including Maharashtra. And thankfully, the rain dance didn't happen, but people came out with their own cars and, they started blasting music and everything. And I was like, oh my God, if any one of them has it, and if anything goes wrong, well, thankfully nothing has so far. There are some people in our building who are under self isolation, quarantine, etc. And just like the government, everybody, every society, every locality is trying to figure how do we deal with this, or how do we ensure that people are not going hungry, people are not losing their shit, because this is, I think about we are like 4 or 5 days I think into our lockdown, and yeah, people are going quite crazy. Yeah. I don't know, there's so much to say, like from the healthcare perspective. I mean, our healthcare system has been a joke
Mm-hmm.
since I don't know how many decades. Uh, and I remember when I was, I think, in seventh standard or so, I had a respiratory infection, and my father had taken me to one of the biggest hospitals, and I was gasping for air and things like that. And they had no idea what to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
They're till the time the specialist doesn't come, and we were waiting for about 2 hours, 3 hours till the guy showed up. And I was just thinking that that's a mild respiratory infection to a child whose immunity is probably a lot stronger than an old person. I wonder what is happening in our hospitals because information is completely blocked. We have no idea what's happening inside. Um, all we get is through the ministry. They pass on the information to journalists, and that's it. If they say there are 300, it's 300. If they say there are two, there are two. If they say 20,000, yeah, probably there are 20,000 affected.
I also saw that Scroll had done a piece which was literally just questions
Questions,
that
yeah.
the government is not answering. And these questions are very fundamental questions. They're just asking things like, what is happening? What are you doing? Give us the
Mhm.
numbers. And they're not giving you the number. And it just feels that we are constantly in this,
We keep
inf-
hitting a wall.
yeah, or we're in this information fog, you know? You're constantly hearing, for example, my mom forwarded me a WhatsApp message that said, oh, you know, the people in Wuhan are recovering because they found the real cure is just drinking tea 3 times a day. So just drink tea. And I was like, Mom, this is fake news. And she's like, Look, I'm just getting millions of these from various groups I'm in, and I don't know what is true, what is not. It just feels that there's this constant information, and you don't know what is right, what is wrong anymore.
Yeah, and like it's also like this kind of information blockade has been there much before this government also came in. It's not just specific to them. It's like when my parents or somebody's parents would get operated or hospitalized, doctors would get or nurses would get very angry or angsty. You're asking too many questions. Do you think you're a doctor and things? And then people started googling,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll be like, oh, I know this medicine, what it does, and things like that. So people in the healthcare industry start getting more pissed off, and more information was kept. Like in several places, a friend of mine, his daughter was admitted recently to one of these five-star hospitals, and they didn't let him take the papers.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, we'll just give you the discharge card. We're not going to let you touch. So this kind of information block has been there. Now added to that is this bullshit of having tea, or like, if you clap in this direction, if you sleep in this direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand the basis of this. The most wacko reason is that Indian immunity is very strong. What is the study that proves it?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't we like supposed to be question, like when people go to buy bread, they see three brands, they'll be like, oh, this one has this much fat, this one has this thing. So when somebody is giving you this kind of information, which is not a question of a 30-40 rupee bread packet, it's a question of your life. Why aren't you questioning it back, or why aren't you like trying to counter it or like just inquire about whether drinking tea sorts this thing, or any astrological stuff is going to miraculously cure you from a virus.
Mm-hmm.
So that is there, and it's affecting mostly I don't know. I'm scared that this kind of information goes into the hands of senior citizens,
Mm-hmm.
and they are the most vulnerable group right now.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, they're a little they fall for these things a little too easily. So a lot of people of my age group are finding it very very hard to rein in their parents, because it's like dealing with a child. Don't go out, don't do this, don't do that. And also because we know that our healthcare is not really um, on par with like the US or Europe or
Mm-hmm.
any other first world country, so to say.
No, but even here, the health system is completely crumbling. It's one of these conversations we've been having, right? Like this country has some of the best medical schools in the world, and but look, I mean,
I'm sorry, but yours is crumbling
yeah.
now. We have crumbled long ago.
No, no. In the sense, I think it's so weird when you say yours is crumbling. When you say yours is crumbling, I'm thinking India.
I
I'm
mean,
not thinking.
no, I mean like it's easier. Like
But
for the sake of this conversation, let's make this distinction that the US is yours, and you know,
um,
yeah.
I
Sorry.
feel like I think healthcare has been crumbling around the world for at least a good 20 years. And I think because if
Mm,
you're middle class, you're upper middle class or upper caste, you just seem to don't see it. And for
mm,
me, this country is just terrible in terms of how it treats those who don't have insurance, those who are black, who are brown. And I remember
mm,
when I was pregnant and I was in one of these hospitals, I heard these horror stories of uh, how black and brown women have such shitty mortality rates of just giving birth in a first world country. Um,
mm,
Again, you don't think about these things unless you're finally in a position where you're no longer the top of the food chain, right? Like, so if in India, I would go to a private doctor. Chances are the doctor knows my one of my uncles who's so in that sense, it's only when you are no longer on the
no, so
yeah
yeah.
that you fear. And I'm sure that people are afraid now, right? There's genuine fear in terms of but what really I don't understand is people are afraid, but fear is not translating into people holding the government accountable. Even now I see people, I just saw, a lot of these people saying, oh, it's China's fault, as if we have everything else is okay, and then it's just Chinese virus. They're trending Chinese virus, they're trending Wuhan. That this fear is not translating into this place where we're saying, okay, let's hold the government accountable. What are they doing with our money? What are they doing with our health services? It just baffles me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that people have not understood that this is something that cannot really go away with 21 days of a lockdown. I mean, and it's they're not feeling scared again because the information is not there. Testing, or if there are 10 hospitals that were in the initial stages, I'm talking about that, then you would have somebody would leak out a little bit of information from somewhere, something would happen. Right now everything is centralized. So just 5 minutes ago I got an SMS saying that the tally of positive people has increased to 300 plus in Bombay itself. And whereas friends of friends who are part of the hospital or who are part of the government say that this number is very, very wrong. There are more. And you know you you like, if it comes out, if the actual numbers come out, then people will start feeling very, very scared, and they might again have a reaction that they would fight for it, they would question, etc. But questioning is not taken in the right spirit anymore.
Hmm.
You're taken as, oh, you're obstructing. Like a number of groups of journalists or other people that I'm a part of, um, they keep saying things like, oh, don't talk negative stuff. They're trying to find out. Um, but that's not really how it works. If I start talking all happy stuff tomorrow, it's not like the virus is going to go away. It's not like I'm not good. It's not like I've blocked myself from it. So I think information not coming here is, like daily, every morning on one WhatsApp group, there's an uncle who sends like a comparative figure from different screenshots. So China is like this, US is here, and this one is here, and look, we are so happy, we are just at 1,000. And I'm like, it can't be. You're not getting scared because you're not being told
Hmm.
what exactly is happening. And like, all those questions, do we have enough kits to have, like, on March 27th, some government order of 1897 was put into force, where every doctor who's part of every medical school or institution is like, now you're on emergency call. You can be called anytime. You will be given training, and specifically the young doctors will tackle corona patients, and the senior ones, because again they're a little more their exposure is to be curtailed. So the senior ones are going to manage regular OPDs and any other regular patients. How are these doctors? Some of them are residents, some of them are resident interns, some of them are. We Bombay does not have any train functioning right now, and this is a city which is like a straight line. So from point A to point B, you have to commute in a straight line. You can't be like, oh, this route is not working, so I'll take that route. So how are these doctors going to report to work? Uh, each at each stage that they are trying to come up with something, they're facing roadblocks, and this is because for all these years they have wasted time on not really looking at the well-being of people. And yeah, I don't know. I hope this answers what you asked.
No, I don't know if it answers anything. I'm just trying to, we're all trying to make sense of what's happening. And one of the things
Mm,
that we've always had conversations about is as photography, in terms of how photography works as
mm,
a documenting tool, a representation tool. You're a photographer and you've been looking at the
mm,
images coming out of this.
mm.
Tell me, what are your initial thoughts when you see these images, your concerns? I know that we've been having these conversations about what happens to people, these photographers, young photographers on the front lines, documenting all of this.
So my concerns are primarily health, and they have always been so ever since I started out. Because I mean, basic difference between a photographer from India versus any other photographer coming from outside was it was brutally exposed during the terror strikes of 2008, where when the foreign press came in, they came in with bulletproof jackets and helmets and things like that, and here we were with like one bag, a pair of slippers, and some, we're just running around waiting to be like shot. And I see the same thing here. I see like on the Nat Geo Instagram handle, I think one of their photographers, I forget his name, he posted a picture of how he's going to work, and he was like fully kitted with like protective equipment, and there's something they get called hazard pay. We don't need hazard pay. I mean, photographers. I went out only for one day. Uh, just to see what the city looks like right now. 'Cause I've never seen Bombay this quiet ever. I have seen it actually in 92, 93 during the riots. But the major concern for every photographer right now is their own safety, their own child's safety, their own family's safety. And second concern is that publications are dying left, right, center, and print is not moving. So sales are not happening. People are just sharing PDFs. And like today is the 31st. People are concerned what's going to happen to their salary. And there are some rumors that some publications might say that, listen, work for 2 months, we don't have enough money, and if you're feeling uncomfortable, you're more than free to walk out. We can't help you because we don't have money. And this business being bad has been, yes, business is bad, but photographers, reporters, designers, this is your core team for a publication. If you have not budgeted for them right from the start, any publication that says, oh, we don't have the budget for a photographer, you should not be in the business of publication.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is, the moment a paper hits stands or the moment a PDF is seen, the first thing that attracts you, apart from the masthead or like a very funky headline, is the photograph. These visuals are very important. So like one photographer has devised a system for his own safety. Is that the moment he goes home, he stands in the building itself, and somebody from inside gives him a spray and he disinfects his entire bag. The bag is then hung outside. The camera is again, the camera is also wiped with a cloth and then kept somewhere. He sleeps in a corner. He does not allow his children. Like, it's been, I think, about 12 days that he's not spoken to his child, both his children, and he's served food on a different plate. Although he's not going anywhere to any of these patients. He started working with a 300 lens. He's like, even if he's shooting on the road, you can see him with this like big machine. And his own mask. I mean, this N95 mask, he had to procure it himself. So it's not like publications are going out of their way to do anything, because journalists can still get information online, or on a phone. Um, Photographers and videographers have to be on the front line. They have to be there, and this is something that you might be photographing somebody you don't even know. You might be talking to a policeman, a policeman who's checking you, and boom, next thing you know, you have it. Another thing is that especially people in Delhi have had a really rough time for the last 3 months. They had this. I mean, we know what Delhi has been through for the last 3 months, and there are these young kids from places like Jamia and other universities, and who, because they were so close to what was happening, because they were so close to the clashes, uh, they're deeply impacted by that. And I spoke to one guy who was at Anand Vihar, the bus station, and he was there the whole day. He's like a 21-year-old boy, and he's like, you could sense the agony in his voice, and he was like, "How are we doing this to our own people? And have you seen visuals of this sort coming in from any country? Like, have you seen any country do this to their own people, especially at a time like this?" And it's a very valid question, and unfortunately, there is nobody who is willing to come from. I mean, our prime minister has addressed twice. I don't know what our health minister is doing. Um, our home minister is, like, we should probably start putting missing pic posters for him and sending flyers, because he's gone. Nobody has any idea what's happening, and that also induces a lot of fear in people, when your leadership is not addressing you like they should be. And it's like being in a house, and when your parents do not tell you what is exactly going wrong and why they are fighting in the next room, children start feeling different things, and they start feeling insecure. They have no idea. So people have this massive current of panic happening, and I'm very scared for the photographers that we have, especially because you know say if you're in, like here, like in the case of this boy, this 21-year-old, he was like, I've seen death for the first time, and I was like, I completely remember the moment I came in contact with somebody who, I had to photograph who was dead. It's not a very easy thing to do for the first time around, and you're surrounded by all these macho men and women, who are like doing it, and you feel like, it's okay to murder my emotions and just go about it. But when do you process it? And it's important to process this because it just makes you into a little more, uh, a more sensitive photographer, so that the next time you're dealing with not just this situation, but any other situation that involves complexities like class and caste, which are, omnipresent in our country, you're able to tackle these things visually better. And it like I see a lot of photographers who, my seniors, who are extremely bitter about their experiences, and it's because I think that the trauma that they have experienced was not dealt with at that point in time, and it is carried forward and become like some sort of a wound. And coupled with that, you have your poor pay, you don't have your, you don't have the right gear for things. And so I feel that this is a time for publications across the subcontinent. I think this problem is very common to the subcontinent, that they should really start thinking of these things, that this is our first line of historians.
Mm-hmm.
um, and they do the same thing with reporters. They just send you, they'll be like, no, I want it anyhow, do what you want. So um, yeah, and like I think it would be a fantastic move if, say, one of these press clubs or somebody, they start having a counselor on board, a financial consultant on board, and people can use this instead of just having like a whole bottle of gold monk every night to drown their sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It's and yeah, I mean, these are predominantly my concerns, and a lot of them end up with pictures that are not published, not seen, and then that adds to you know, uh, their frustration. So I recently heard that two photographers tried to get inside Kastuba Hospital. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's false. I'm not bothered to verify. But I'm like, see, this is the extent that people will go to get an exclusive image. For what? It's
Mm-hmm.
not like you're going to get like 2 lakh rupees extra for that thing. You're still just going to draw your salary.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That does not mean that you should stop excelling at your job, but the whole idea of taking a calculated risk when it matters. And when the younger lot sees this thing happening, they feel that this is the only way to operate. This is the only way. You push and pull, and you take liberties with the people you're photographing. So pretty much these are the concerns I have. But I think they can be addressed at. I mean, apart from conversations on aesthetics and how to be successful, I think these are conversations that festivals should also have,
Mm-hmm.
as to how do you manage these things,
But
especially in a country where if I have a wound on my hand and if I have a plaster, I'll show it off to everybody. But if I have anything wrong with my heart and my head,
mm-hmm.
and that's another reason why a lot of people are not expressing their travel histories, because
Mm-hmm.
they're afraid of being stigmatized. So this stigma factor plays out in both ways.
But also, the photography industry itself is deeply casteist, hierarchical. You have a handful of gatekeepers who decide what comes in, what goes out. And for me, it's also the stories that die because of this
Mm,
system that is deeply oppressive. As you said, not everybody who goes out and gets remarkable
mm,
work done gets published. The work that we
mm,
see is not actually the best work often. Often it's the
mm,
work of people who understand social power, who understand how networking happens, who
mm.
understand who you need to approach and how you need to approach them in order to get something out. And I think all of that is going to compound. As you said, these are people in the front line. These are frontline
These are
historians.
newspaper photographers.
Yeah.
These are newspaper photographers. They are, I'm sorry, and I don't mean to demean any of them, but half of them can't even construct a single sentence in English. When I used to work with the newspaper, it was my job at 7:38 to sit down, sit with all the photographers, and be like, okay, so this is the assignment you've done. I'm going to write the caption for you, and it's not that not knowing that, but not knowing the language actually keeps them, you know, away from certain circles, and um, yeah, these problems, if they just keep leaving them unattended, are going to compound in the coming years.
Okay. So it's been only 3 weeks, and it's going to be a long
Yeah,
haul.
very long haul.
Long haul.
Yeah.
As we come to the end of this conversation, I
Mm,
kind of want to figure out ways in which we can do things better. Because for me at Polis, one of the things that we are thinking about is we are a very small organization. And for us, the
mm.
first thing, again, these are conversations we've had on and off, is how do you build something ethical? How do you struggle to be ethical in times when everybody is laying off millions of people? People are just being laid off. People are not giving stuff. How do we think about this? How do we move forward? And I ask this as someone who's constantly struggling with these questions.
I don't really know. I mean, we are all grappling with it, and I just think that this is a time for everyone to rethink their systems. This is, when we were in Hindustan Times, we had this very bizarre HR head who came in and he was like, none of you photographers are swiping your card at so and so time.
Hmm.
And like, we're photographers, we're not supposed to be in, what are you going to do with a photographer who's sitting in the office from morning to evening? It's useless. So he said, no, you have to do it anyhow. And then my boss was at that point in time like, okay, we'll do this 9 to 5 business. Anything that happens after 5 o'clock, you're responsible. You take our cameras and you go and do the work, if you want it like that, because then we want overtime, because then we want all the benefits that come with a 9 to 5 job. And many organizations put their staff through this. There'll be some guy who will be in one corner of the city, and they'll be like, okay, why don't you come in the night and swipe your card? If you don't swipe your card, you're this thing or whatever, whatever. And now what? What are you going to do now? It's everybody's able to work from home. You're able to coordinate. You're able to design pages. You're able to function. So it's not like these systems do not are not manageable. It's not like I don't understand why you need to induce drudgery into a person's life. Like, wouldn't you rather have a happy, nice employee who's more than willing to go an extra mile for you because you're going half a mile for them? And with regards to coverage, also, yes, the moment a mind is a little freer, the moment they have a little more time with their families to read, to do things, I think the coverage can improve. And wo- yeah, as in, like, I, because of the time that I have with myself right now, and I'm not going out. I'm freelance, so I don't, till the time I'm not commissioned, I don't want to put myself at risk because I have two 50-year-olds at home. And I started looking at the most common visual experience that you have sitting at home is your WhatsApp group, and the kind of bullshit that comes in from there. All these people who tell people that you know 3 times T is going to sort your life, and especially that whole clapping thing. I mean, it's so wrong. I mean, it's so wrong on so many levels. The kind of things that people feed. And with a hoarding, your vision is like this. With a TV, your vision is like this. With a phone, it's so focused. You're absorbing this information faster than anything else. And there is an entire army of idiots who are making these forwards. They're wasting their. I mean, of course, I'm sure somebody's either paying them or whatever. And like, I felt like. There has to be some sort of an archive of this thing, so that when you look back as to where we went wrong, at least somebody will be like, oh, okay, so this is the kind of bullshit, this mythology that we started feeding into people's heads is where we actually screwed up. And yeah, I mean, so it's been like, of course, it's very taxing, and it's not the reason why I shave my head, but it's very taxing to be in these WhatsApp groups and listen to all these people, who are supposedly very highly educated, and they're saying, like, forwarded as received, and this is what happens.
Hmm.
You know, like, there's this 3 panel forward that I got from someone, which has got, Narendra Modi is so great, and this and that and whatever, and it's got all the, like, small shots of people who are clapping for him. The whole world is clapping for him, and there's, like, saints, cricketers, and this thing. And there's one little box where you can see Rajdeep Sardesai, and the description for that is the haters. And how this must play out on somebody who is seeing Rajdeep, and Rajdeep equals journalism. So the next time they see a journalist of any kind, it's this, the distinction is made in their head that this is a hater. Okay, first, you can't question because you're obstructing the government. Now anybody who questions is a hater. So you've made your system in place that, and for this entire bullshit to survive, you need an entire army of these kind of journalists, who will be more than happy to say that there's a nano chip in your note. So
Hmm.
um, I feel that uh, visually this is the most devastating thing that is happening right now, apart from, like, the images that come in from Italy or other countries. uh, this is doing more damage to our people than anything else. I think I digressed a bit,
No, no,
but
you're about to.
I feel that there should be some kind of mechanism, some kind of check for this. Apart from increasing uh, or making photojournalism better. Better is a subjective word. Apart from that, there has to be a concentrated effort on this entire parallel news industry that has popped up.
Ritesh, thank you so much for joining us. You could actually also buy Ritesh's book, The Red Cat and Other Stories, on his website, which is again what?
No, it's okay.
You
I
don't want
just
me
didn't
to
see
you don't
that
want me
come.
to hawk your book?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know
No.
if this is
Okay,
the right
let me do
time
my
for
thing.
people to be.
No, because I think the it's one of the most beautiful objects that I own. And I know I'm talking in words that are things, but it's one of the most beautiful things I own because it's about a city that I don't know, as told by someone who's lived in it. But also, it's beautifully written. And I say this to you, and I know you get very annoyed, is that I think you're a much better writer than a photographer. And I think you're a very good photographer with moments of great brilliance hidden that emerges every few months. But no, I think I love your book, and I think people should buy it, enjoy it, and read it. So you could buy the book in Ritesh's website, which we will put a very quick link to on this end of this conversation. But Ritesh, thank you so much for doing this. I know that I've been harassing you, and thank you for making time.
No, you've not. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, thank you for this. I also hope that since I've done since we are all as a country where everybody's realizing the kind of drudgery that is there in domestic work, and people are like, oh my God, I'm washing clothes and look at my hands and I'm doing sweeping, etc. And lots of people are cleaning their cupboards, including myself. And I've thrown out 70% of the things that I used to hoard, objects, etc. I have one request to all the photographers around the world. Please start making lighter, smaller books. It's very difficult to manage them in our little homes.
For
So it's just
lighter, smaller, more poignant books. On that note, you also owe
mm.
me two essays, which
No, I
I'm
will
going
not.
to hold you accountable for. The world is
I'll
coming to
send
an
it
end, and I
them.
want my essays.
No, 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 you'll get them soonest.
All right. Thank you so much, Ritesh.
Okay, bye.
Bye.